Hello nerds, JJ Carmorist here. Welcome to my channel. Today I am very excited to have on my channel one of my closest friends in the writing business. Today I have Tricia on the show. She goes by the author name T.L. Humphrey. Tricia is a fellow author and my critique partner, and she is also now a professional proofreader and copy editor. So Tricia is here today to talk about writing and editing. She is the author of the Katie's Journey series, which is 4 books so far, along with 2 companion novels that go with the series. She is also the author of the Honor, Courage, and Love series as well. And we have so much to talk about today, so let's get started. All right, so Tricia, welcome to my little corner of the internet. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on my channel with me.
Thank you for having me.
So in my brief intro, I kind of mentioned, the Katie's Journey series, as well as the Honor, Courage, and Love series. And to start off, I just kind of want to talk about, the genres that you write in. And so the Katie's Journey series, definitely, I would say, in the fantasy genre. And then the Honor, Courage, and Love series, would you say that would go in like the paranormal romance category?
Yes.
Or yeah,
Yes.
okay. And
Yep.
so I've read like a number of your work, of course, and so you write in so many different genres. You have like fantasy, thriller, and then like romance, and then even horror as well. And so
And and you
what?
haven't even read the sci-fi ones.
Yeah, the sci-fi one I know is in the horror. So yeah, you write in so many different genres. Is there one genre that just really just draws you to that one that you love the most, or you like them all?
I do like them all. But I think there's something really fun about fantasy. It's you can kind of do whatever you want in fantasy as long as everything makes sense. But I do like them all. Just whatever
Yeah.
pops into my head, whatever comes out, that's what I usually just start writing. And that I don't always finish whatever comes out. You should see my back burner list.
I can't
but
imagine.
but eventually I do get around to them. And then when I met you and you're doing this dark YA stuff, I thought, well, how can I get dark too? Because you've read the Katie's Journeys and it's very uplifting, kind of funny and stuff. And so in this dystopian series that I'm writing now, I tried to get a little dark and gritty, and then my humor just comes out in the middle of it. So I'm just gonna go with it. My friend's like, just go with it. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go with
Yeah,
it.
well, I mean, that's good because sometimes when things are dark, you kind of need that like what do you call it? Like that humorous outlet to kind of like lift you up from like the depths for a little bit and get a little bit of
Right.
relief there, So
Right.
the humor does go well in the like dark genres too, I think. So one of the things that has always like just impressed me with you is how prolific you are as a writer. Like, I know you'll be one week you'll be emailing me about this idea for this project you had, and I swear the next week you're like, oh yeah, I wrote it. Here it is. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
When the idea's there, they come really fast.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like what is your writing process like? Like how long does it typically go from, having an idea? Do you let it brew for a little bit, or you just jump straight into putting it on the page?
Um, it varies. It really does vary. If I take a look at the Katie's Journey series, I did all of those books in about 9 months,
Wow.
maybe 10. And one of the side books, Shalia's Spirit, I did that in 22 hours. So that was 2 days. And literally, I sat and I wrote. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. We weren't doing anything. So I said, I'm going to write. And that's what I did. Now, when I say I wrote it in 2 days, that just means I got my idea out on paper. After that, it took another 2 months to really flesh it out, take things out, make things make sense.
Yeah,
Those
all the
kind
revision. Yeah.
all the revisions and the editing. But there's other stories that roll around in my head for months. And it's just ideas that I just start putting together, and eventually they take form. And that was kind of with because I sent you the Dystopians, the first book,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how that one came about. I thought, well, what if this happened? And then it was what if, and then I knew I wanted female characters, and I knew I wanted strong female characters to be able to handle these situations. And so then I had to really flip, well, what's going on? How would a woman view these things? Because I think in dystopians, a lot of times we see it from male point of views. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to put that out there. I'm not here to bash any type of dystopian books. But I think from a woman's point of view, we're going to see things different. We have to react different. We have to fight different. We have to see a situation and process it through our heads and act on it. You know, it's just different. Whereas guys, they see a situation, boom, they just attack it. But women, we don't necessarily have that luxury.
So yeah, we're more analytical. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we have to sit and think about that. So I hope I nailed that. You'll let me know when you I don't know if you've started or not, but
I'm like just like the first couple pages in, but yeah, I'm really excited to get into the story.
Well, at least you got a couple pages in. That means I did something right.
Yeah, I with my crazy work schedule, most of the time, like I hope my boss isn't watching this, but most of the time that I spend, you know, answering emails and like doing data reading is while I'm at work. So sometimes I'll like get interrupted with work stuff and then I'll have to like put it down. But
stupid work getting in the way of what I want to do.
I know, yeah, working so I can do my other work. Sometimes I also write at work too, which is, you know, when I get the chance.
Yeah,
but yeah, so talking about the Dystopian series, is that what you're currently working on now, or are you working on another project?
So yeah, I'm working on book 6, and I jacked up the timeline, and I think I kind of mentioned that to you in an email, but I jacked up the timeline, and so I have to fix it, and right now it's on a back burner while I think about it and think about how I want to structure these paragraphs and these chapters, and if I need to rearrange stuff. So I am currently working on Dystopian, but while it's back burnered while I think about it, a lot of times I start writing short stories. So, and that just kind of helps my creative flow. And then I'm also helping somebody right now. He's an older gentleman, and he has a lot of interesting ideas. He's like a storyteller, but the writing part is not as strong with him. And so I told him I would help him. So I'm helping him right now with kind of a little thriller short story. It's about, I think we're at about 6,200 words. And I'll be sending it to you because I want your feedback on it because it's a little dark. Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
I need a dark beta reader. So just to see how this, I don't know. We're still working on suspense and trying to build that up a little bit. So once that happens, I'll help you out with that. So I guess I'm kind of ghostwriting for him, but he's really excited. I'm happy to do it. You know, I just throw it in at times, the times that I can. So I'm always doing something, whether it's re-editing or writing or, you know, helping this gentleman out. So yeah, I'm always doing something.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that thriller, because I know you'd talked to me about like the backstory, and this is your first kind of like ghostwriting you know, experience. So I'm looking forward to that. And I love all of your short stories, because I feel like most of the short stories that you've written, at least the ones you've sent to me, have been more like darker in the like horror genre or thriller genre. And they're really fun, really cool. And I'm excited because we were talking earlier before we started recording about you having a audio narration of one of your short stories. So I'm really excited about that.
Yes, and I'm excited to send it to you. See what you think.
Yeah, I can't wait. Audio is like supposedly it's you know, like the big new thing. You know how ebooks were like the big new thing a couple years ago. Now it's all about audio. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of, you know, see how that goes for you, and kind of also wet my feet in that part of the industry eventually too.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, going back to some of your series, and so what like, I know when you first started writing, you said, well, I don't know, maybe our viewers don't know the backstory of how you started writing, but you originally started writing just a short story, and then a friend of yours said that this isn't the end, you need to keep writing, and then that's how the Katie's Journey stories were developed. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was an e-zine, and they wanted a series of 3 stories without endings, so ambiguous. And the very first chapter of Katie's Cottage, you can read that as a short story. And I pretty much, thank you, because I read my books. I had a busy day yesterday. I couldn't get back. So
That's okay.
I left it open. And when I had my friend read it to see about sending it to this e-zine, she's like, well, where's the rest of it? And I said, well, there is no, it's just, that's it. And she's like, no, it's not. And she kept arguing with me. And I was like, no, I had every plan. I had everything set up to send it to this e-zine. And I started thinking about it. Well, what if that's not the end? So I wrote the second chapter, again, kind of like a short story. And it just kind of morphed from there. I was like, oh, there is more. And then, of course, we got the whole series. So I'm hoping to get book 5 and 6 out this year.
Yay! Yeah, which I can attest. I've read those, and they are fantastic.
Thank you.
So yeah, and so if people are going to pick up one of your books for the first time, where do you suggest that they begin?
So, of course, Katie's Cottage started it all. So you could start there with the Katie's Cottage. You can pretty much binge read up to the 4th book, because 5 and 6 aren't out yet, obviously. And then the Paranormal series, A Vampire's Love and A Werewolf's Kiss. And I happen to know that somebody has a crush on Acelio, so
I know, and this cover too does him justice too. I'm pretty excited about. I was pretty excited about the
I
cover.
was really happy with that. That turned out really good. That's okay. You better do justice with Bedford. So.
Well, that one I don't exactly have a lot of control over, but we'll see.
So either one, I'm hoping to get the 3rd book in the Paranormal series is The Magic Touch, and I'm hoping to get that one out again this year. I've got no time frames. I'm waiting on my cover artist to get back to me, and that's where it's sitting right now.
All right. And so before we move on to, I'm going to kind of transition in a little bit to talking more about editing, because you are now a professional proofreader and copy editor. But before we move on to that, I just had one more question about like the whole writing side of things. Like what would you say are some books or some authors that influenced you in your writing, or I guess inspired you to write in the first place?
So I'm totally going to date myself here. I was reading romance books in the 80s. Those clinch novels, the big sweeping men holding the women, and
yes.
There's usually horses rearing in the background. So I was a victim of those 80s, 90s clinch novels. And when I first started writing, I was writing a lot of Westerns, and I still have those, and I was thinking about resurrecting them. However, the 80s and 90s is a whole era that a lot of men teaching women how to women. And I need to rewrite a lot of my books. So I'm planning on resurrecting them, but I really have to change some of what I had been influenced by and had been reading. Now, that's not a bad thing. And I wouldn't mind going back and rereading some of those again, because they are very well written. And a lot of them, really, if you go back to look at those, especially if you're looking at like story arcs, they're actually really well done. So if you're ever looking for just maybe a little nudge somewhere, go pick up one of those old romance books because they really do
Okay.
have it down. And then, of course, Tolkien, because of fantasy. Of course, he was a hard read. It was a lot of reading, putting it down, reading, put it.
You can process all the language. Yeah, it's a lot.
Pretty much. Yeah, it was a lot. And then, of course, your classics. I really do like a lot of the classics with, like Dickens or Austen, Bronte. And those are really good classics also because they also have those good story arcs that have been copied over the years. So it's a tried and true testament to them, to those authors. It really does work. So
yeah, I think I started kind of my love for the English language kind of started with those classics because I love just it. Sometimes at some point it doesn't even matter. Sometimes for me, at least, like the story is just the language is so beautiful. And I think that's definitely an inspiration of mine that I have in common as well.
Yeah, and I'm really excited that you got picked up by a publisher.
Yeah,
because I
thank
can't
you.
wait to see Trials in print. That's just
Yay!
awesome. I'm so excited for you. I can't even tell you. It's like emails lose so much, or you on. It's like
Can't
now
put
I
enough
see,
exclamation points. Yeah.
and now I see you in person. I'm like, yay, jumping up and down. I'm excited for you though because that's a huge win. I mean, it really is.
Thank you. Yes, I'm really excited about it. Like I'm trying not to get too excited because like otherwise I'll just not be able to wait another minute, Like I want it now.
I know November. I know.
Yeah.
But you did get one out, so
Yes.
that's good. That's
Now I'm like,
exciting
okay,
too.
I need to write these sequels now. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I got a time crunch. I gotta knock these out.
Yeah, chop chop.
But yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, no, I gotta take a page out of your book and just knock them out. How I'm
Well,
curious, how would do you have like an average amount of hours a day you typically spend writing, or does it really just vary depending on the day?
it does vary depending on the day. I do editing for insurance companies, so it's whenever those jobs pop in, I end up working. But a lot of times I have time in the morning to do all that, and I'm just wherever I can find time to write. I'm blessed that my life is really not that chaotic. I don't have a lot of things going on, so I can sit and write a lot of times, and pretty much knock them out, like you said. And this weekend we're probably not going to be doing much, so I'll probably get some writing in.
Awesome. Yeah, I one day I'll quit my day job and I'll just write all the time.
You
Can't wait. Anyway, so switching gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about your editing business. So you are recently became a professional proofreader and copy editor. I'm curious what made you decide to get into professional editing?
So going back to when I was writing, I have been writing since I was 14, and I read a lot, I wrote a lot, and I started seeing in books things that I wanted to copy and things that I didn't want to copy. And it kind of morphed from there. But recently, having done, I worked at a sheriff's department, and I started off in transcriptioning, and I always wanted to fix everything. And so a lot of that started there. And then I started fixing a lot of writers. I met a few authors and I started fixing up their things. And then I was just doing this for free. And a friend of mine said, well, why are you working for free? And I said, I don't know. So she's like, well, you need to get paid for this. And I said, well, if I'm going to get paid for this, it's going to look better if I start getting, like a certificate behind my name. So then I went and I ended up taking classes just to hone my skills. And now I've launched my business. It's a couple months old now, and I'm looking for clients. So hit me up if you're looking. I
Yes.
also I put on my website, don't let money keep you from a bad edit.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. Like, yeah, I can absolutely attest to your editing skills, which of course benefited me incredibly since, we exchange work all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just the scope of your editing, it's very comprehensive. I've not seen that in another editor because usually when you hire a proofreader or copy editor, it's pretty much just the standard grammatical stuff and the, consistency with like spelling and capitalization and all that, mechanical type things. But you also do a ton of like developmental stuff that has to do with the actual plot and the characters and the story. So it's very, very comprehensive and it's, yeah, very, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, I like to help. I'm really passionate about helping writers get their best story out there. I know personally, what it's like to think, am I good enough? Is my story going to make it in that publishing realm? I've read other people and I hold a candle to these people, and I want to help writers develop. How did I say it? I want to help them develop their words into worlds and frame those worlds with their words. And by doing this, it not only makes me feel good, but I know other authors and writers have appreciated just the insights because you know what you're saying. But
mhm.
did that translate? And I'm guilty. I'm
We
guilty
all
of
are,
that.
yeah.
We know what we're saying. We know the story. We know
Mhm.
that, what's going on in our heads. And we can see these playing out. But did it convey to your audience? Are they
Mhm.
understanding? Can they picture what you see in your head? And that's the most important so that you can get, a well-written book out there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so if anyone watching, if you are looking for, proofreader, copy editor, all in one, editing machine, then check out Tricia's
Yeah.
website. Links will to everything will be down in the description. But yes, yeah, I'm really excited about your new business, and yeah, I'm happy to spread the word everywhere. So I don't have
Thank
a
you.
lot of writer friends, but the ones that I do, I'm telling them.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, just open a dialogue with me. Send me an email and let's talk.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to see where you're at, what maybe you really need help with. I just came across a guy, he paid a lot of money for proofreading. And he sent out this message on a forum that I was on needing help. And so I said, I can help you. And then he got back to me and I said, well, what's wrong? And he said, well, I paid all this money for a proofreader, but I still don't think my story's right. And I said, well, why don't you just send me your prologue and your first chapter and let me take a look at it? And so he did. And it turned out he had a lot of what I call random thoughts.
Hmm.
And it's like when you're reading, and then one of these things is not like the other, and then you keep reading, and
Hmm.
he did that. His POV was off in places. And so he knew something wasn't right, but he paid all this money for a proofreader, and that's not what he needed. He needed more of a copy line editing type of
Yeah,
work.
or like a book coach. Yeah, he needed, a little bit of coaching to get him to that stage. Because yeah,
And
the
that's next on my list, book coach.
yes, yes, you should absolutely open up to that aspect too. I'm not really sure how all the business side of that goes, but yeah, I think that's definitely a good route to go to because ideally you would want the proofreading copy editing to be the last thing that you do, when you're done playing around with the storyline and the sentence structures and everything. But yeah, if you pay for the copy editing proofreading first and then you end up changing things in your story, you got to go back and do all that over again. So yeah, that
Yeah, I felt bad for him because proofreading can be pricey. It really can be expensive. So
Yeah, I mean, we are lucky in that, like, most of the time, as a writer, things are pretty much free, just like you need a laptop and that's about it. But then when it comes to you like publishing your work, that's where all the expenses come in. It gets very,
yeah.
very pricey, very, very fast.
And I always tell people, you need a second set of eyes on your work. Always. Always.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, a third or a fourth set of eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. If you only have one, make sure that this person will tell it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I did have one. She liked everything I did. And so I didn't ever really get a good critique. If I've missed it, I want to know about it. I want you to tell me,
Yeah.
you've done that and I've appreciated that.
Yeah, it sometimes it can be hard too because it's someone else's art and it's, when you're handing it to someone else it's your own art. So it is hard to read the responses and also give the responses. But I think, if you're not doing that, it's doing a disservice to that person in general. But even though it is tough sometimes, as an author, you got to kind of toughen your skin, which I was talking to someone else earlier or the other day about how that is like a skill that we have to develop as authors that you don't really realize for until you get to that part that is a skill, learning to get
Mm-hmm.
critiques and feedback and rejections and not have it hurt you to your soul.
Yeah, you do need to develop a thicker skin for sure. When I critique people, I try not to, well, actually, I don't think I even do this. You did this, you did that. Don't write like this. Do write like this. You have to approach this, when I looked at your Eris book, that was your baby. And you worked a lot on that. And I could tell the work that went into that. So I wasn't going to go in and tell you, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I got stuck on your first paragraph on your first page. I went round and round with it. And I asked,
yeah, you're like, what is this? I'm like, well, you're kind of right.
and when you explained it to me, it kind of made sense, but I still thought it needed a little bit of a tweak because it wasn't quite coming together. And it really stumped me. And I liked that because I had to go look. I had to work. I had to work at it and try to figure out exactly what it is you were trying to say. So you do need to develop a tough skin, but when I send people suggestions, I just say, consider this way, or what are you trying to say here? Or, up here you said this, and now you're saying this. And, it can be really comprehensive, and you really have to keep things straight.
But yeah, all through like the times that you've done editing on my work, I've never once felt like you had any kind of negative tone. It was always very helpful, very positive, feedback. Even when you were, giving me critiques and stuff, it never comes across as like, mean or like anything like that. It's all business, and you have a very, kind and sweet way of giving your feedback, which I really appreciate.
Thank you,
Because I am very sensitive too. I don't know if you know, but like I'm like a sensitive person about my work. And so when I hand my stuff off to people, I've handed my work off to strangers, like beta reading strangers before, and there's so much anxiety like getting it back because you're just like, oh my God, I don't know this person. What are they gonna say? But yeah, I've never felt that way when exchanging work with you. So
that's good. I'm pleased to hear that because I do work hard. These are your babies. I get it. I understand. I look for your voice. I look for what you're trying to say, how you're trying to come across, and then I make suggestions, or if I find, the proofreading mistakes. So
exactly, yeah. So, and I can definitely tell you're very like passionate about the editing that you do as well, which is fantastic. Because of course you want to work with someone who's feels passionate about the work that they do. And I was curious to know, now that you have the whole proofreading business, is there one you prefer more, writing or proofreading, or they kind of balance out for you?
It balances. I like them both.
Yeah.
There's something about writing your story and getting it done there's that, oh, I did it, and then there's the editing. And I like editing too. I know in the writer's world, a lot of people are like, ooh, editing, and you'll see memes out there about, how hard editing is. And I don't feel that way. I've never felt that way. And I know for other authors or writers, they tend to not like that aspect or part of it, but I do. I do like it. I like to. It's like a puzzle, you know. So I try to figure all that out, and I'll even re-edit a lot of my other books, even some of the published ones. Sorry, I'm going to resend you books. You didn't know this, but I'm going to be resending you books.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Well, I had to add some things because since I've published other books. So I had to do a lot of updating in the back of the book. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's why that came about.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I don't remember. The thought is gone. So what as you've come across with your proofreading and in editing, is there one or two things that like really you see people doing a lot that you have to, suggest that they fix, or things that people just tend to do without noticing, that you come across most often?
Yeah, repeat words and phrases. Sometimes, especially, and I've done this too. I don't get a free pass on this. You'll be describing a scene, and you'll have this scene you really want somebody to understand. So you write the same thing twice, but in different ways. And that's one thing I see. And then sometimes, like, I wrote the story in my dystopian, and they're traveling down a highway, and they see the town. So I wrote, we're traveling down the highway, and we see the town. When we enter the town, we walk to the middle of the town. So you'll see stuff like that, and it's like, okay, I think they get the point that they're in a town.
Yeah.
So I see those types of things where they'll use the same word in a series of sentences, or even several times in a paragraph. And if you set up your paragraph right, then you don't have to do all these, repeats. And then, of course, what we just talked about conveying properly, what you're seeing out there to your reader. So those types of things.
Yeah. And I know, too, one of the advice I had, I forget where I read this, but it's basically says, if you have to explain something twice in different ways, this probably wasn't good explanation the first time if you feel like you have to re-explain it again. So either say it well the first time, then you don't need to say it twice. So yeah, that's a big one too. And then I've heard too, another kind of goes along with that is the like resist the urge to explain. If you've already explained it, or if it's very clear in the dialogue, you really don't need to keep explaining it and keep hitting it over the head, because as authors we always have that fear that, oh, the reader doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, but really the reader understands most of the time. Yes. Not if you're clear enough. You
need to trust your reader. You need to trust that they know what you're talking about. And well, I was going to say something now. And now I lost it. Traveled over here. Now I lost it. It was about editing. One thing I do recommend is after you get to the point where you think your story could be published, go in and do word counts. And I showed you some of those in the ARS. And only because, and I have this on my website, I have a few blogs, and one of the words that we use the most is that. And that is one of the most used words in the English language. We write it, we speak it, and we don't know we do it. And if you're watching right now and you're an author, just do a word count in, like, if you have Word, just do a find, type it in, see how many times you use it, because that can oftentimes be taken out, or you can rewrite your sentence to take it out. And once I had started doing that, I went down from, like, I had it, I think, I don't remember in my blog, I think it was like 639 times in a 71,000 word book. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really a lot. And I got it down, I think, to 139. And that's better.
Yeah.
And that was using that in more of a restrictive type of clause. And that brings me to that. When you are writing and you're writing restrictively, then you can use that. So pay attention to your words, how you're structuring your sentences. And that would specifically refer back to something that only that can do, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There's my little word.
There's your free tip of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, no, going back to talking about editing, I finally remembered, I think, what I was going to say like 5 minutes ago. But talking about editing and how, a lot of authors tend to hate editing. I tend to love revision and editing up until you get to that line edit where you're really just like looking at every sentence and really asking yourself, is this the sentence I want to say? Is this really how I want to craft this sentence? That is just torture for me. But like, I love all the other, when you do the first draft, like for me, drafting is kind of anxiety riddled because there's that fear that it's not going to turn out the way you think it is. But once I get the words on the page, I'm like, okay, it's not perfect, but I kind of got it down to something that resembles what I had in my head. Then the pressure's kind of off from there. And I feel like there's a huge weight lifted, and then I just go back and do all the editing. But then that line edit and those picking the words out and just really moving commas around, that's the part that I hate that part.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with these programs. I use Pro Writing Aid and I use Grammarly. And it's okay to use these programs. Just understand that you still need to know the English language, and that many times you'll get suggestions that change the meaning of what you're actually trying to say. And anybody who pays for the Grammarly subscription, you're going to know this, because it will give you suggestions on how to rewrite things. And I've had it where it told me to rewrite something. But if I had used their suggestion, it would have changed the meaning of what I was actually trying to say in that moment. So be very careful with writing programs. There's nothing bad about them. They do help you. They help me. Just be aware, you still need to know your sentence structure. You still need to know your story, and you still need to make sure that you're getting your thought process across to your reader.
Yeah. Don't always trust the technology. It bothers me so much. Like even just using Word, and sometimes it'll, blue underline something that is not, it's actually correct the way you wrote it, but it's still like makes you question. And it bothers me because I can't stand the whole little blue or red lines under things. So it bothers me when it does that. I wish I could, I know you can like turn it off for that function, but nah, too lazy for that.
Well, but sometimes it's a good guideline, because
it does help. Yeah, when it is pointing out something that is actually incorrect. Yes, it's absolutely helpful.
And just also keep in mind that a lot of these writing programs, they'll work against each other. So I have taken sentences and put them into Pro Writing Aid and put them into Grammarly and got 2 different results. So again, just make sure that how you want to say it is coming across, and just use those as a guide.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So before we kind of close out, and before we run out of time here, I just kind of wanted to have one more question about your editing and business, and how you kind of work things with your with your world in the editing industry. But for you personally, are there any types of stories or genres, that you find you enjoy editing the most?
So I apparently like young adult dark fantasy.
Ooh.
Uh, and romance, sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, adventure, action, dystopian, horror, thriller. Those are some of the ones that I'm probably the best at because I'm going to find these nuances. I have a very varied background personally, so I can see different scenes if they're going to work or not. And I can't tell you how many times I've read stories thinking that character can't do that. Unless they're magically infused with something.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So I do see things more analytically and can kind of break down scene structures. And I know I did that with your trials book with some of your fight scenes, where
Yes.
you see the fight in your head, but again, fight scenes can be tricky because you got to make sure if your character gets knocked down, the next sentence they're not up again punching somebody. What happened? They fell. So now what happens? Did they fall down a cliff? Did they hold on for dear life or something? Did they manage to kick out, as they were falling? What happened? There's so many different things.
Yeah, you're very good at the scene blocking with the fight scenes and the logistics of it all, which is something that's actually really difficult for me. I tend to struggle with my fight scenes because sometimes it's a lot going on at once, especially if you have multiple people fighting at the same time. But I feel like your background with martial arts helps you with that. Would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Because you can see well, not everybody can do it, but you kind of see how things are working. And I confess, I have stood up and acted out fight scenes because you've got to know how your body is going to move. Do you move back this way? Can you strike out if you're falling to the side? What's happening here? So yeah, I've gotten up and acted fight scenes.
That's dedication right there.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and taking time out of your day to kind of talk to, my corner of the internet, who I call my nerds. But where can other authors find you and your editing services and also your books?
So if you go to writeonproofandedit.com, and it's WRITE, and is spelled out, so it's writeonproofandedit.com. And you can go there to read my blog posts. You can look at my pricing. You can see the services that I offer. Also, under the book tab, I have 2 short stories there that you can read for free. Kind of get to know, my style. And there are links to my books under the book tab. So you just have to click on whichever one you're interested in.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, and down in the description, I will have all of that linked. If you want to go check out, I encourage you all to check out her website and check out her books, and I'll put all of your social media handles and all the things that you want to send me. I'll put that all down in the description.
Yeah, my Facebook and
Yes,
Instagram.
yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this little video podcast, and yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Tricia.
Thanks.